Anxious, preoccupied, and the 5 stages of a relationship. Now, this is going to be a continuation of those 5 stages, which have been broken down in individual videos before this, and you can see that in the series here. Now, but how does the anxious, preoccupied influence these 5 stages of a relationship? And what needs need to be met so that that anxious, preoccupied individual can actually navigate through these 5 stages to get to the more fruitful and later stages? Before we go into that, let's talk about a little bit about anxious attachment style and also attachment theory. So attachment theory has to do with a child and a caregiver growing up in their lives. And depending on what the caregiver models towards that child will depict, well, okay, these are how I'm supposed to interact with people because this is what's shown to me. So they'll start to actually reenact those type of interactions with future relationships. That could be work, loved ones, and even their future kids that they have going on in the future. So what about the anxious attachment? So there's 4 major attachments, but we're going to focus more on the anxious preoccupied. This anxious preoccupied usually has a negative view of themselves, but a positive view of other people. And that's usually because when they grew up, they had either inconsistent parenting, so they didn't know what they were doing right or wrong. They kept thinking they were at fault. Or they had helicopter parents, which did everything for them, which they start to realize the child's like, oh, maybe I can't trust my own decisions because I need somebody else to make them for me. Wherever the case may be, they usually look for the people to validate themselves because they don't feel like they're worthy enough on their own. But before we go into more detail with that, let's talk about the 5 stages real quick so that we can get to the big stuff. All right, a recap on the 5 stages of the relationship. You have honeymoon phase and the dating and the honeymoon phase together, right? So dating is when you start to really talk to them, start to grow some interest. Honeymoon phase is when you get that infatuation, that the neurochemicals of phenylalanine and oxytocin, your love chemicals, and they can do nothing wrong, and you blur your boundaries, and they're perfect, and that's going to be your honeymoon phase, right? Then you go in the dating phase. Then you go into the power struggle phase, which what happens is you have 2 individuals start to realize, okay, we need to go this way. No, we need to go this way. No, we need to go. And what happens is each individual has their own policies and procedures on how they've learned to survive in life, and they keep trying to pull the other person to fit their policies. And it becomes a power struggle. It's like, well, no, you need to do it my way. No, you need to do it my way. And then it comes up in battle, all right? And so then you get to the stability phase, which is people start to realize, okay, I'm flawed, you're flawed, we're both flawed individuals. The relationship is innately flawed in general, but how can we take both of our policies and how we think things run and see if we can find a way to do things together and move forward? And is it possible to do that in a time frame that we actually can tolerate? Then you have the commitment stage, which is going to be when you start to commit to that individual, realizing that you may not like that person or love that person the way you did before, but realize that it doesn't matter how it is at that point, that you believe that it eventually will get back to normal, so you commit to that person, good or bad. And then you have the bliss stage, when you get to a point where you have so much peace. A lot of times you get to a point where you start to want to build something outside of themselves to help the community. And so those will be the 5 stages. And sometimes it's not linear. Sometimes it could be cyclical, or it could be web. But at the end of the day, understanding when you get further down in these stages is more likely that you're going to stay in the further stages than keep repeating those earlier, more troublesome phases. So now, what about anxious, preoccupied, and how they navigate through the 5 stages of a relationship? Now, we're looking towards anxious, preoccupied, and the 5 stages of relationships. We're going to focus more on the dating, honeymoon, and power struggle phase, because stability, commitment, and bliss stages are very similar between all the attachment styles. Because what happens is in the first 3 stages, you kind of find out whatever other position that individual is, no matter if they're anxious, avoidant. And what happens in the stability phase, whatever partner you have, you're just trying to find a balance between them. And then you have the commitment, which you make a verbal commitment that you're my person no matter what happens. And then you have the bliss stage, right, which is you're helping other people with joining forces of each other. So they're all gonna be very similar. So we're gonna focus more on the dating, honeymoon, and the power struggle phase. So within the dating and honeymoon, we're gonna try to put them together. Thais Gibson, which she's amazing, has great information. She usually breaks it up into 6 stages, but according to Susan Campbell, it came from the book from the 1980s that she published about the 5 stages. I'm trying to keep it in that same of 5 stages. So dating in the honeymoon. So again, dating honeymoons, you have the phenylalanine, you have the oxytocin, all these chemicals which make you want to like love drunk on this individual. Usually what happens with the anxious preoccupied, they want to be like close physically and emotionally and constant contact with that individual. These are the needs, what they need from that perspective, right? And then also they fall in love very quickly. They fall in love, they like this person really quickly. They usually want to jump in a relationship within a month, all right? Because what happens, they can be kind of impulsive and just want to jump into something without getting a lot of the facts in place. So, but the effects of it could be anxiety when the partner's not available. Oh, are they talking to other people? Am I the only one? They also overanalyze the partner. They're like, oh, this person's doing this and this and this, but without any really any evidence about like, okay, how'd you come to that conclusion? So a lot of times in the dating and the romance or honeymoon stage, they can actually conjure up this whole story in their mind about what's going on, and then they'll start to actually believe it. They'll usually adopt to the partner's needs. Anxious preoccupied have a difficult time setting up proper boundaries, and so sometimes they'll like their partners need to become their own, which usually is a self-fulfilling prophecy for something bad to happen down the road. But that's one of the big things they'll do. And then ideation, they're like, oh, this person's perfect. They do this and this. They can't see anything. They see all the positives and not the flaws, right? So that's gonna be the honeymoon phase when considered from the anxious, preoccupied side. Now, the power struggle is when things start to come to light, and a lot of the fears start to come to light, right? So the effects of the power struggle on the anxious preoccupied is increased anxiety. They have a huge fear of rejection and abandonment, right? So like, and then so when the situation sometimes they might not even be in a complete relationship at this point in time, depending on who they're dating. But even if they are, they're worried that I got something and I may lose it. So they may struggle from unresolved issues, focus on what's the relationship, what is lacking, and then sensitive to partners' changes, behavior, moods, and communication, which is kind of like before, but the anxious preoccupied are sometimes considered fortune tellers because the more data they have, the more they can potentially predict what's going on. Again, that's an adaptive, learned behavior that helps them down the road. But it can make them a lot of mistakes because if you're not communicating about what's going on or opening healthy communication dialogue, that can cause problems, right? So the needs are, they need excessive validation. Are we okay? Do you love me? Do you care about me? Do I look pretty? And so also feel strong about resolving conflicts almost immediately. Sometimes people may need some time, but the anxious person might actually I need to answer now. We need to fix this now, without even truly getting some time and space of person for them to really understand what's going on. Sometimes they will use some manipulation to meet their own needs and by trying to change in their partner for what's best for them. So those are the things you gotta look for, right? So in these aspects of the honeymoon phase and the power struggle phase is very malleable, and the more you understand where the anxious individual is, the better you can meet that individual. But also when the anxious preoccupied understands how they are in different stages, maybe they can be more understanding to get past these stages to get to the more fruitful stability, commitment, and bliss stages. Final thoughts, guys. And so please like and subscribe if you get a chance. But understanding how different ways of how to navigate through the anxious preoccupied to understand where you are, or if you're dating somebody who's anxious preoccupied, to understand where they are so you can meet them through. Some of the things that's good when you're dating somebody who's anxious preoccupied is let them understand, like, okay, I understand, I care about you, and if you need extra validation, please let me know, that's okay, right? But tell them, hopefully over time, I would like to be able to get to a point where we are be able to understand that I care about you without me constantly having to say it over and over again. But hopefully we'll find a balance. And so that's kind of things is making sure you understand where they're coming from and try to meet them where they are if you care so to do so, to move forward. And so understanding this can help people navigate to more fruitful and coexistence with the anxious preoccupied, and hopefully help the anxious preoccupied understand themselves a little bit better so they can monitor themselves to make sure they can be able to be healthy in relationships. So Hopefully this information is important. I'm going to do dismissive avoidance next time. There's a lot of information about dismissive avoidance. I'm going to try to break that into 2 different categories, but hopefully this has been helpful. And as I end most of my video calls, because I've been forgetting lately, but if you have kids, slow down and give them a hug and tell them that you love them. I feel like as parents, one of the biggest, and as in the world, one of the biggest epidemic is neglect for our children, and sometimes we don't realize that we're even doing it. Slow them down, tell them that you love them will go a long way, not just once, but on a consistent basis. So, till next time, see you when I see you.